Let us talk about the craziest thing they've done in a while, the level 12 fix, and specifically how I feel about it after the changes that came on, I think that was Wednesday night into Thursday, or no, Thursday night into Wednesday. Yeah. Before we start, I have a question for you guys. I know there's a lot of people out there who are very math inclined. Okay. We talked about it in the previous video a little bit, but yeah, this one I want a very specific question asked and maybe answered as well if you guys want to do that. Where is the current tuning after the 10% nerf mathematically on the old systems, the old like version of the affixes difficulty? Not like season 4 of Dragonflight or anything like that, but I mean season 1 first 3 weeks versus season 1 week 4 and onward. Because I know it's a 10% nerf. Some people were trying to explain this to me, but I'm never going to understand it. So don't bother trying to explain that to me. Just tell me mathematically what a 12 is equivalent to. Well, that's probably not easily done, but let's say a 13. What is a 13 equivalent to in the old system? Is a 13 easier than an old 12? Is a 14 equivalent to an old 12? I don't know, because I did a couple 13s as well. And the weirdest part about this all, when we started doing these 12s earlier in the week, like, if you guys didn't watch last week's video, I said, this was the week we were going to hit 12s hard. And we did not hit him that hard, unfortunately. Mostly, we'll talk about this in a second too, but we did do a good amount of them before the changes. And I'd been saying this for a while now that I will not be upgrading a 12 this season because it just didn't seem possible. Like, there's such a bad community presence around it as well. And I didn't think that numerically we'd ever get to the point where it would be easy enough to do and reliable enough to do in a pug. Now, this was me being a bit silly and maybe a little defeatist, but I stood by that up until this change. And then, it was mostly because I was getting just absolutely annihilated in there to the point where it was like, I can barely survive these packs. Like every single one of these packs damages me so much that I don't know that I could even do anything other than like play perfectly and survive. And then they nerfed it. And now it's like back to reading chat the whole key. It's actually crazy how much easier it is. So it makes me wonder, like, where is the difficulty at now then? Like, is that a 14 now that I would feel that same way again? I also, I got a small amount of gear this week, not really much, but I did craft the boots, which were huge because I put my second embellishment on there and I gave versatility and mastery on the boots. So that's really good defensive stats. But anyway, just let me know that. And, now we'll talk for the rest of the video about my thoughts on this. And I just want to say, like, right out of the gate, terrible idea. They really messed this up. I don't know what to say. Like, I know a lot of the top players. I don't really even know who was actually giving this feedback. I know they were basically telling us that top players were doing this. I guess this is happening. I don't follow these kind of conversations, but basically it seems like top players were asking for basically no fixes because of the push week, blah 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 nonsense, where like they mathematically figure out which the easiest week is, and they all just try to prioritize that week, and then the rest of the weeks don't seem very intriguing to them. And I have a lot of fundamental, like this, I don't agree with this concept in many ways, mostly because of scoring. I feel like, if you're just only caring about the 1 week, you're just not demonstrating that you've mastered Mythic Plus. But because of how score only cares about like, it doesn't matter what the fixes are, you get away with this. Like, I bring up sports analogies all the time, but like, yeah, we don't need to keep going into this, but like it's pretty clear that as a competitive player, you should be demonstrating mastery over all the different challenges that the content offers, right? Like it would be like if somehow you only ever did one dungeon, if that was even possible, which it's not, but like if you just did Dawnbreaker 150 times this season and you became the best Dawnbreaker player, would you also say that those people are the best Mythic Plus players, even though they have the highest key ever? It's just a Dawnbreaker 25 where everybody else has like a 22. Well, no, because they haven't done all the other dungeons. Like it's the same way with the fixes. They're meant to challenge you differently. So just min-maxing the hell out of the system and only playing on some weeks does not demonstrate mastery. And even the tournaments don't allow you to do that. Like when you play in the MDI or the Great Push, like there's the different fixes exist. So it's just a weird system. And Raider.io really dropped the ball on this. And I have nothing positive to say about how they handled it from the start. And then Blizzard, not elaborating on it with Mythic Plus score becoming part of the game. it's all bad. So now they kind of fixed it, right? But I still think it's not a good fix because you have this weird situation here that we just had that had to get changed where you go from a 9 to a 10 and it's like really hard comparatively. Like a 9 is very, very easy. And then a 10, it's like, whoa, like all of a sudden it's really bad. And then you do 10s and 11s and it's like, oh man, I finally mastered that. Like I can't believe how hard that was. And then you go to 12 and it's like you get hit in the face with a frying pan. You know what I mean? Like it's insane. I don't know why I came up with that frying pan. That's weird. But anyway, yeah, I don't think that was good for the game. And I talked about this in the beta. We talked about this ad nauseum at this point, but it's just going to cause people to not want to keep trying. You know what I mean? Like you could say whatever you want. And, you know, we talked a lot about this and people have like criticized me because they believe that me saying like people who are not able to rise to the challenge of a 9, and then me saying like, you know, those people who are asking for the game to be nerfed for them, and then me saying like 12 needed to be nerfed is the same, like it's the same thing there, and I'm being hypocritical. But like, I mean, obviously, like this is a ridiculous statement because a 9 is so freaking easy compared even to a 10. And then a 12 before this was before they changed this, a 12 compared to an 11 is like, what the hell is going on? It's like ridiculously hard. So now they changed it to the point where it's basically like, it's almost not that much harder. You just lose the effects. You're basically doing a different version of the dungeon. So I think they got I think they nailed it. For even though I don't like the way it is in the system, I think they nailed it now. That if it's staying this way, I think they did nail it. Like the difficulty we see now compared to what we saw earlier in the week before the change basically is pretty damn good. I just published this last night about my first Dawnbreaker 12. So I have now done. Let me actually take a look at the stats. I won't have them to show you guys, but I will tell you. Yeah, 22 12s. I've done 22 12s in the Mythic Plus Library spreadsheet. BigPlay.1/Mythic Library in the description here. I have my stats for every key I've done, and since 12s were so different, I decided to make a little block for just the actual stats on 12s. I may consider adding like the actual class representation and stuff for 12s as well. Kind of interesting, I think. Like maybe if we look at like, you know, Resto Shaman's like 90% in 12s, even though it was only like 40% in lower keys. So anyway, 18 disbands out of 22. That's 81%. Completions, meaning we didn't upgrade it, but we did finish it. That's 3 out of 22. That's 13.5%. And we have 1 upgrade. We finally got that Dawnbreaker 12. I published that yesterday. We did that Dawnbreaker 12, and it was pretty much, well, it got a bit messy at times, mostly at the end. It was pretty clean. I mean, I would say that was a really well-run dungeon, and we didn't really make any major mistakes. I didn't feel like I did anything too wrong. Maybe, you know, I'm very not aggressive in Dawnbreaker because of how many times I've been bitten, and I don't really enjoy having people land on the wrong area and pull trash. That's not very fun, so we're trying to go a more conservative route so we don't have all this stuff extra aggroing. I could definitely run it more aggressively, but we did upgrade it, and we upgraded it. You should see the ending of that because that was pretty nuts. We actually had more deaths than the timer took time off for because of how it ends. If anybody knows the answer to this, I don't know either, but how long do you have like at the end where you don't lose time? Somebody said it's up to 2 minutes now. I don't know that for sure. I think it used to be like only 30 seconds, maybe based on the changes we saw, but yeah, we had people die, and because it was so late into the timer, we don't lose like the peril effects or whatever. That doesn't come into play because it's so late in the timer, which is cool. Cool idea. But anyway, yeah, 12s are a way better balance now. I feel like it's actually where it should be now. And I think this is what they should have did from the get-go. But, you know, the Blizzard is likely to err on the side of too difficult and then reduce difficulty. This is also like this is a smart way to make it because if it's too easy, then they're in trouble. They can't do anything about that. But if it's too hard, you have the like psychological effect of, oh, they nerfed it, thank God. You know, and this is pretty much what we're reacting to. Like this is why this is a video. So they were never gonna buff it in the middle of the season, but they could nerf it and let this feel good. So, you know, we have that. A lot of people talking about that on all key levels, but I think it's pretty clear, like back to this original point, that, you know, 12, we did look at it in the last video. Actually, you know what? This would be an interesting, again, just because the way I have it recorded, I can't really show you guys. Actually, let me go ahead and do this anyway, because I do think this is useful. I have to turn that off, but this is useful. So mind the improper video situation here. But yeah, let's take a look at this because this is actually very, very interesting. We looked at it in the last video, and now let's see the difference. Oh my God, yeah, so huge, huge, huge. If you didn't see in the last video, it was less than 100 points, the title cutoff and the top 1%. And I don't know that this number changed. I'd have to relook at this video, but I'm sure this number changed a little bit. I think it was 6,100 characters. Now we're up to 6,300 characters. And this was 610 characters. So yeah, it's whatever. People made like fun of me because I said, how crazy these numbers are, but it's about the differential. Like it's 100 and how many points is this? Let's figure this out too. Why not, right? Let's do it all. So it's 2818 minus 2677. So 141 points. Last time it wasn't even 100. So the gap is growing immediately, which is pretty nuts because I think, they really did hit this perfectly. And this is how it should be. It should not be where you just hit this wall where nobody but the absolute best players can progress. So you want to say that like I'm also whining about nerfs and stuff. It's like no, this is just not like it's just way too hard. Like the stats are like it's obvious, right? And I don't even care. I didn't even really want it to be nerfed. I actually was enjoying it the way it was because it felt like it would be more of a spectacle to finally upgrade at 12. Like if you go weeks and weeks and weeks and you have like 100% disband rate and you can't even get past one boss, people are going to be interested in that. You know what I mean? If you finally do it as a pug. So personally, I would have preferred it fucking buff it. Like let's go to 40%. You know what I mean? But yeah, it was out of whack and it needed to happen. So, but yeah, the timer in Dawnbreaker used to be looked at as one of the easiest timers. It's top 2 probably easiest, and we barely upgraded it with minimal death. So I have yet to do Eric Harris successfully. We did do Eric Harris 12 as well this week, and we kind of messed up. I would say like I'm not really sure. When we were doing it on lower keys, I was going left, going around the side there, and people were like, lol, lol, you know what I mean, yelling at me to not do that. So then I started going down the middle on the lower keys, and that seemed to just be better, and it was easier count and more straightforward. But now we got to the 12, and we just got wrecked by that mob, like totally wrecked. So I'm thinking, obviously, as we go up higher and higher, when everything does way more damage out of the gate, it's probably not a good idea to be fighting one mob that just constantly does more and more damage. So now we have to go back to the left. So we did disband the key, or we actually finished it. We only missed it by a minute or something like that. Even with that mistake, we pretty much had a full wipe to that mob. I solo saved it. Well, people kind of ran back and we finished it. But yeah, so I think, that's why it's important to finish keys. And that's why I said we were not going to ever finish a key. Dude, Grawl was in the chat. He can corroborate this. We did a Siege of Browse. That's on the spreadsheet as well. Check that one out. I got knocked off. Kind of a poor, obviously bad play on my part. I got knocked off on the first pack. So I got knocked back. I thought I was out of it. I was too busy thinking of threat. Bad excuse, but still true. And I moved, but not enough. And then I got knocked out of it. Okay, so now I'm downstairs. We got 3 deaths to that. Me and then 2 DPS die. I recover. We finish the pack, right? We're like 25. I mean, we're like a minute and a half into the dungeon at most, right? Okay, GG. Thanks, guys. Great try. Nice try. You guys really played well in this one. This like nonsense that, this game is basically played by people who are not even, I think they're more interested in failing than they are succeeding. Because now here's a sports analogy for you, right? Like imagine any sport. It doesn't matter what sport you're talking about. Imagine a team that if they don't score first, like at the touchdown or soccer or whatever, the score is 1-0, the game's over. All right, guys, we're gonna go home now. I know it's only 5 minutes into the game, but like I can tell, bro. I'm a genius. I'm genius level at telling what 45 minutes extrapolated from 1 minute look like. So I'm out. It's just GG. You guys tried well. Hey, you guys played well. Other than the tank who got knocked off, everybody played well. Shit route, by the way. But no, that's how it is not anymore. So, yeah, I don't know. That didn't seem like that was going to go away. And with the terrible, death effects plus how difficult everything was, I was like, bro, I'm like, it's going to come down to me. Like, it felt like it was going to come down to me. And I would never be able to rise to that challenge perfectly. There'd always be some mistake. And because people don't, well, there's not really even the wiggle room to have the mistakes, but people aren't going to allow you to make that mistake and learn from it within the same key. It was like, I'm never going to progress. Like, that was my biggest issue was, we did a couple early ones and people were like, literally like, I'm not here to help you. I'm not here for you to learn in this key. We did a Grimbatol 12. This was like Tuesday. I think it was Tuesday. It's like, bro, there's like 50 Grimbatol 12s and higher in the world right now. Like, are you joking? We're not upgrading this. When you enter this key as a pug and you think we're going to upgrade this, you're just insane. Or you have no idea how hard this actually is statistically. So you're yes, you are here to like everybody is here to help each other learn at this point because we're obviously not upgrading this from the get go. But yeah, and that's just that mentality was everywhere in the first few days of me trying them, and it just didn't seem like it was going anywhere. And with how hard it was to survive, so it's way easier now. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. I think a lot of people have been having more success than me. Unfortunately, if you watch yesterday's stream as well, we spent almost an hour without getting an invite. So all these people who are out there saying like, "Oh, I try to do my own key and it's 7 minutes and nobody signed up." It's like, bro, it took me 1 full hour to do a key as a tank. Doing a 12, I have every 11 done, even a double upgrade in an 11, which I know a lot of people were doing that too. I'm very qualified for the 12. Like outside of being overqualified for it, yeah. Everybody keeps talking about tank shortages. Maybe at low levels, I can buy that, but not across the board. So yeah, that's definitely it's been rough. It's been rough. I guess I'm not Prot Warrior or Bear or something like that, so it's making it hard to get in. But yeah, full hour. There was really at times there's only one key or maybe zero listed. That's another weird part about this all. I don't know why you would still is happening. You would think that now that 12s are so easy, well, comparatively, you would have a lot more people trying to run them in pugs. But I think a lot of people just tapped out on pugging. I think a lot of people just gave up on it, honestly, and that's not good for anybody. So let me know what you guys think, especially if you're pugging. If anybody's out there keeping stats or track of how many runs they've had, I've been asking this question a lot too. Now that it's nerfed, it's kind of irrelevant, but before, especially, how many runs did you do before you upgraded your first 12? For me, the answer was 21. 20, and then the 21st was me upgrading it, or was it 19? I don't remember exactly what the numbers all were, but yeah, it took us basically a full week of attempting. We did get our currency, so we didn't always have 12s to get into, as we just did 11 still, but we did get our currency. Like we played a lot this week, and we only got one upgrade, but that was again after the nerf. So let me know what you guys think about it, and especially how you feel about the affix, and if you think this is working, and where do you think the difficulty breakpoints go? Do you, I started talking about this, but like one last question. If the top end players were seeking some kind of more sustainable weekly balance without affixes, do you think 12 was the right number? I've had a lot of people suggest that it should have been 15 and that 10 through 14 should have had the regular affixes with the double fortified and tyrannical like they have been. And then that number should have been raised up for the actual top players. Because your average person out there pugging shouldn't get stuck. Like we got stuck week 3. A lot of people got stuck week 2, right? Many people maybe even week 1. You hit that wall 11, and then it's like, well, that's it. And people were actually just running 11s and trying to double upgrade them for score. That was the only way they felt they could progress, which is awful. So again, whatever you want to say about low keys, man, you can keep making these comments. This is not a video about that, but it's clear, very, very, very clear. The 12s are way, way, way too hard, and that they did mess this up. And again, thanks. You know what I mean? Like all the people who asked for these changes, now we're going to be dealing with this for probably the rest of the expansion, where it's going to be this balancing, this tightrope, because you have 3 different tiers of keys. And we actually suggested them doing separate keystones for this. I think they probably still should. And then you can, start getting into the idea of maybe that solo queue concept, where it's basically solo queue versus pushing. But it's basically at that point, like we have low keys, which is anything sub 10. Then we have like actual middle key, like whatever you want to call that. That's like regular key difficulty. That's what it should have been the whole time, 10 and 11, which is ridiculous because there's only the 2 levels. And then you have 12 and up, and that's high keys. Like that's push keys, that's progression keys. So you basically have 3 different tiers to balance, right? Like there could be a boss that's very, very hard on 10, that's not that hard on 11, or that's not that hard on 9, because there's not tyrannical every week, So like if you balance it around 12, then all of a sudden 9 becomes too easy, and then you have dungeon imbalance there. And if you change the timers on Dawnbreaker because they're too like lenient on a 9, but the 12 we only got it by a few seconds. Yeah, this is really complicated. So let's see how it works out. Let me know what you think.